Tsuyoshi Mukouda was an ordinary 27-year-old in his hometown, until one day he is transported to a medieval kingdom that wants to use him as a hero. But, seeing that he has no special ability, they set him free. Now Mukouda must survive by using his strange ability, which allows him to bring objects from his world. Story begins. 4 heroes from another world are summoned to the kingdom of Riesager by magic. Although they are slightly confused, the locals quickly explain to them what is going on. They also take advantage of the moment to measure their skills. The first of them is a rotund swordsman, while the 2 waifus are extraordinary sorceresses. On the other hand, our protagonist, 27-year-old Tsuyoshi Mukouda, was transported by mistake, and the unique ability conceived for him is, as the anime name suggests, absurd, as he possesses the power to access an online supermarket, an ability that the inhabitants of Riesager are not even able to understand because the internet does not even exist in their world. Later, the heroes are brought before the king, who explains to them the situation afflicting the world, the war against the Demon King. The heroes swear allegiance, while Mukouda asks to be let go, as he is not even a real hero and will not be able to help his companions. For this reason, Mukouda leaves the palace with a few gold coins that the king gave him as compensation. His first purchase is an outfit in keeping with the times, since everyone looked at him as a freak because of the way he was dressed. He then seeks room at an inn to relax and check his stats. Although Mukouda expected to see something different this time, his skills are still valuing an item box, so he will be able to carry many items in his inventory without having to carry them himself. Also, his unique ability remains the same, online supermarket. Upon testing it, he realizes that it is broken, as he can bring objects from his world. Realizing this, Mukouda decides to take advantage of his ability and head to other places. For this reason, he manages to travel as a passenger with a group of merchants who are on their way out of the city. On the way, Mukouda learns that his ability to have an inventory is extremely rare, and that every merchant would want it, but that valuing is an even more interesting and powerful ability. In addition, the merchant tells him that Riesager intends to close its borders due to the dangers surrounding the city. Because of this, Mukouda decides to hire a group of warriors to escort him, so he heads to the Heroes Guild, where he meets Werner, a knight who was also planning to head to the kingdom of Venan. At dawn, the group prepares to leave, but first, Werner introduces Mukouda and Vincent, Rita, Ramon, and Franca, the members of the squadron. After walking for a few hours, the group stops to rest and Mukouda takes advantage of the moment to use his skills to prepare a meal. After eating, the heroes are delighted with the delicacies prepared by Mukouda and ask him not to stop cooking such exquisite dishes. Upon returning to the road, the group encounters a series of enemies, but they manage to defeat them and protect Mukouda. After defeating a wild boar, Mukouda uses his inventory to save the huge amount of meat the animal left behind. As evening falls, Mukouda begins preparations for dinner, so the warriors wait anxiously. Mukouda uses his unique skill to bring ingredients from his world and prepare an exquisite stew, which the heroes devour. Seeing the high spirits this provokes in his friends, Mukouda uses value to see the stats of his companions and is surprised to notice that these were increased thanks to their food, which catches his attention. Unbeknownst to them, a strange figure watches them from the shadows. After a long day of adventures, night falls again, so the heroes await Mukouda's next big dish. He uses as many ingredients from that world as possible, as he doesn't want to arouse suspicion by using his unique ability. The dish is so exquisite that it makes his companions blush, and they begin to adore Mukouda and his talent for cooking. Suddenly, everyone is perplexed to see a Fenrir, a mystical and ancestral animal. The Fenrir asks Mukouda for some food, so Mukouda begins to prepare an enormous amount of food until he manages to satisfy the animal's voracious appetite. In gratitude, he offers his loyalty, carrying out a family contract. The Fenrir tells Mukouda that he will have to give it a name, since he is now responsible for its welfare. After discarding several names, Mukouda baptizes the Fenrir as Fel. The mystical, ancestral wolf joins the group, whereupon the heroes warn Mukouda that he will not be able to pass through some villages, as all the kingdoms fear a creature as powerful as Fel. The super cub interrupts them to demand food, so the group stops and Mukouda starts cooking. Seeing that he has little meat left due to Fel's insatiable appetite, he tells his new friend to go in search of his own food, which leaves the heroes in shock as Fel obeys Mukouda. The super dog soon returned with a mighty monster in its jaws, so Mukouda began to make a tremendous teriyaki with the bird. After regaining their strength from Mukouda's food, the group decides to continue on their way, but they see the neighboring kingdom scared to death. Warner explains that a creature like Fel is capable of frightening any army, so he decides to go and explain the situation to them. When the rest of the group arrives at the gate of the kingdom, the army receives them threateningly. But Warner asks Mukouda to prove that Fel is loyal to him, so they allow them to pass, leaving a warning to the young cook. The adventurers enter the city without paying any taxes, while Mukouda must pay a few coins for him and Fel, so his companions recommend him to join a guild in order to avoid the taxes, and after a moment's thought, he decides that it is best to join the Adventurers Guild and the Merchants Guild. Our beloved group separates, as the adventurers must inform the guild that their mission was completed. Mukouda arrives at the Merchants Guild along with Fel and they go to talk to the receptionist, who explains to Mukouda that he will have to start his career at the lowest rank. Before leaving, Mukouda tells the young woman that he will return the next day to sell her some items. Night falls again and Fel revels in the long experimentation of meats and sauces Mukouda chose for dinner. The next day, Mukouda returns to the guild and presents the objects to sell to the receptionist, but she immediately runs to her boss's office. Mukouda is invited to meet with the guild's highest authority, who tells the young cook that the pepper and salt he presented are some of the best in the world, for which he offers him 17 gold coins. Mukouda can't believe it, as that only cost him 5 copper coins thanks to his unique skill. The next day, Mukouda goes to the Adventurers Guild and talks to the receptionist, who treats him indifferently and tells him that he must complete at least one mission a month if he doesn't want to be kicked out of the guild. Before leaving the place, Mukouda chooses a mission that seems to be a simple one. Mukouda's mission is to collect medicinal herbs, so he asks Fel to go hunting while he uses valuing to quickly find the herbs. Fel shows affection for Mukouda and gives him a magic shield before going hunting. Mukouda finishes his mission very quickly thanks to his skill, but first he must gather a huge amount of powerful monsters that Fel hunted. Mukouda arrives at the Adventurers Guild because Fel carried him on his back, which alerted the whole town. The indifferent receptionist falls in love with Fel at the mere sight of him, which shows her fury side. But since she is not in charge of buying such a large amount of merchandise, Mukouda meets with another of the guild members, who tells Mukouda that he will pay her once he finishes dismembering the monsters. The next day, the young cook returns to the guild and the man who waited on him gave him an absurd amount of coins, as each of the monsters Fel hunted were either B class or A class. Because of this, Mukouda decides to reward his furry friend by making him exquisite dishes using only ingredients from his world. After making him taste various types of meat, Mukouda prepares a black wagyu steak, which disappoints Fel because of the small size of the meat. But upon tasting it, Fel is completely alienated by the delicious taste. This catches the attention of Mukouda, who uses his appraise skill and realizes that it raised Fel's exaggerated stats by 50%. During the night, Fel hunts all kinds of creatures, destroying much of the forest and angering Mukouda. The next day, Mukouda asks Fel if he can use magic too, to which Fel responds by telling him that anyone with magic in their stats can use them. Mukouda sees that his magic stats are low, but not non-existent, so he decides to train. Although he is initially embarrassed trying to create a fireball, he gradually manages to improve. To speed up his training, Fel takes Mukouda to a goblin camp and forces him to provoke them so he can test what his magic is capable of. Although the young cook almost loses his life, this helps him slightly because when evaluating his stats, they grew significantly. Due to the fatigue left by the fight, Mukouda uses his unique ability to take some sweets for Fel and him. Although Fenrir didn't seem to mind the candy at first, he ends up falling in love with it. Mukouda fears that Fel will get sick from eating candy, but he explains to her that he was blessed by a goddess, so he can't get sick. Mukouda feels jealous of this, as someone as strong as Fel should not be blessed, but weaklings like him need the blessings. Meanwhile, a goddess watches this conversation intently. Upon entering a village, the dynamic duo frightens an entire village, so Mukouda must promise the guards that his furry friend is not a Fenrir, but a great wolf. As he said this, Fel denied what Mukouda claimed. Thanks to this, the young cook discovered that he and his furry friend can communicate by telepathy. After eating a large feast together with Fel, Mukouda accidentally kicks a tender slime. Seeing its stats and noticing its weakness, Mukouda feels sorry for the little slime, as Fel tells him that it could fall victim to any monster. The slime begins to eat the garbage that the young cook left behind, so he notices that the slime will eat anything. Seeing that the two have become friends, Fell tells him that this slime is already part of his family, which Mukouda confirms by looking at his stats. For this reason, he chooses a name for the new member of the group, so the slime will be renamed Tsui. Fell wakes Mukouda to tell him that Ninrir, the goddess who blessed him many years ago, heard Mukouda's wish to be blessed, so she offers him an exchange. The exchange consists of blessing Mukouda in exchange for him sending her sweets from the other world at least once a week. By making the pact, Mukouda receives a blessing against ailments, in addition to being able to use magic with greater ease. Meanwhile, Ninrir enjoys all the sweets he received. Fell takes Mukouda to a dungeon so that he can practice his magic and perfect it. Before entering, Mukouda prepares a huge amount of saucers using his unique ability to boost his and his friend's stats. Upon entering, he is confronted with all sorts of monsters and beasts, but Tsui constantly helps him, as he is able to use a powerful attack that kills his enemies instantly. The last level of the dungeon is extremely difficult, as they must face a gigantic group of werewolves and their king. Due to this combat, Mukouda is weakened and faints. Upon waking up, he finds that Tsui is now able to speak and has the sweetest and most tender voice that exists on the face of the earth, even sweeter than your crush. To celebrate the victory in the dungeon, the young cook prepares a delicious and nutritious meal for himself and his friends. The group must go through a very dangerous forest full of monsters and beasts to get rare items. Although Mukouda doubts this, he convinces himself that he is safe if he has Fell by his side, as he literally defeated a group of beasts without even trying hard. After a few days, Fell finds a farm of healing mushrooms that are extremely rare, so Mukouda decides to collect them. Meanwhile, Tsui ate a large number of mushrooms from the farm, so something weird starts to happen to him and a new ability appears in his stats. Tsui stretches out his arms and makes healing potions flow, so Mukouda collects them in a bottle and discovers that this potion is able to save someone from death. After a month and a half of facing horrific creatures, the group finishes their trek through the forest. Mukouda sees a group of thieves attacking a carriage, so Fell takes the initiative and rushes to the scene to help. As thanks, the men set out to guide the group back to the village. At dawn, the group arrives in Kerlina, one of the largest towns in Leonhardt's kingdom. After wandering around for a while, Mukouda goes to the Adventurers Guild along with the guards that Fell saved the day before. Upon arrival, he is forced to take a mission so that the guild does not expel him for inactivity. He then gives the butcher all the beasts Fell hunted in the forest to extract the meat and sell the important parts to the guild. The next day, Fell presses Mukouda to choose the goblin hunting mission. Later that afternoon, the group goes into the forest and begins to hunt a huge number of goblins. But Fell reminds Mukouda that he must cut off the ears of each of the beasts to take as evidence to the guild for promotion. Tsui demonstrates his power and melts all the goblins, even acquiring a new ability in which he is able to increase or decrease his size by splitting himself into many parts. Fell again acknowledges that he has never seen anything like this in all his years of life. Due to the huge amount of goblins that Mukouda defeated, the receptionist Wafis sends him to talk to Willem, the guild boss. He tells him that thanks to the settlement of goblins they defeated, he will be promoted to Class C and given a juicy reward. In addition, he tells Fell that he will prepare S-Class missions for him. The next day, Mukouda meets Willem again, who gives him his C-Class hero credential and gives him a gigantic sum of gold coins due to the monsters he delivered to the butcher the day before and the goblin settlement he defeated. Before saying goodbye, Willem assures them that no one in the kingdom will bother them if they decide to stay in the city, as the king feels safe from neighboring attacks due to what Fell represents to the enemies. In addition, he gives Fell a mission to hunt a metal snake, leaving the guild with a fortune in his pockets. Mukouda goes to the store of Lambert, the man Fell saved. He runs a leather goods store, so Mukouda chooses various items to change his outfit. When paying, the man gives them to him as a thank you, but before saying goodbye, he asks him that the next time Fell defeats exotic monsters he remembers to bring his skin to his store. In the end, Mukouda prepares a delicious meal for him and his friends and enjoys the moonlight as he watches them sleep peacefully. The end. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and click the bell icon to get new anime recaps.